I wanted to get full use out of it, so I did a photo every day for an entire year, 365 project. I didn't really know what sort of photography I wanted to do, so I just did a bit of everything. I did landscapes and portraits and things, and light painting. I started off with traffic trails, like most people do, just setting up a tripod next to a road and filming trails. Wet streets and buses work particularly well for this. Big buses with lots of lights on. Pretty cool. This is one of my first goes at, sorry, what? You okay? Cool. This is one of my first goes at light drawing, and I quickly discovered I wasn't very good at drawing freehand. Yeah, I made an orb tool. That was my first orb. It's great. So, oh, my back? No problem. I'll just carry on. But yeah, I got a bit of practice and got better at them. Started messing around with gels and torches, lighting up things. And yeah, a few other experimental things. It's sunglasses. Am I going too fast? Is this okay? Is this good? Then I met this guy. I don't know if you may recognize this guy. He's called LED Eddie, another English light painter. And he introduced me to steel wool, amongst some other things. And I had to go at this. That was my first ever steel wool shot. That's the second one, bit better. And yeah, I'd always wanted to try this. I'd seen photos of it before, but never tried it myself. I was a little bit scared of it, believe it or not, because it's just fire and dangerous. And so, but yeah, this is me. This is my first ever go at steel wool, and it just totally blew me away. Before this, it was all just lights, orb tools, and gels, torches and things. But with steel wool, you could just, within about 10 seconds, you could just fill up an entire frame with like detail and just crazy explosions and things. So I was instantly hooked and just did wool spins everywhere I went. But they all kind of looked kind of the same. They always just had that big empty circle in the middle, and I wanted to figure out how I could make it more interesting. So first thing I did, put an orb in the center, fill up that circle in the middle. Worked quite good. And another one, big one. So quite cool. And this is this is with the orb tool as well, but spinning it round your finger. So you get that spiral effect. So it gets shorter and shorter each time, and this nice spiral effect in the center. And this was the easiest way to do it. I'm actually basically very lazy, so it's quick and easy, quick and dirty. This is just literally fairy lights with a clip on the end to hold the steel wool, and that fills in the circle in the middle as well, rather than just leaving it blank. And this is 2 meters, 2 meter length of LEDs. So you get a big 4 meter wide circle. But yeah, that's just an outtake I put in just because it looks quite cool. No other reason. This is another way of making them more interesting, putting people standing in front of them. This is LED Eddie again, and I just drew around him with a torch and used water. I don't know why I'm pointing at that. Yeah, just using water for reflections and stuff. Sorry. This is the same thing again. This is a little bit again, but this was me on my own. As you can see, the arm's not quite a little bit off, but it works good enough. And what else have we got? This is another type of wool spin I like. This is the where you can't actually see where the sparks are coming from. Direction makes a difference. This is the same shot, but rotated at the same time, so the sparks fly out in all directions. And this was wind. This is basically on top of a hill on a very windy night. And you just spin very, very slowly and just let the wind carry the sparks away. Works quite nicely. And this is a marble, obviously. I've seen shots of people taking shots of marbles. It's almost like a fisheye lens effect. So obviously I had to do it with steel wool. So that's how that turned out. This is trying to change the color of steel wool. Steel wool's are always orange, so I used to just use gels. I made a very simple filter holder that I could quickly change the filters over mid-exposure and get different colors. The one in the middle is actually a color temperature correction gel, and you can see it's like a blue gel, and it's made the wool come out almost white. And this is the same thing again, basically. Again, all one exposure, just changing the gel over halfway through. And same thing again. There's another thing I discovered is if you use a very, very short piece of string, I basically do my wool spins. I have a piece of string with a sort of a crocodile clip or alligator clip on the end to hold the wool. And sometimes it's best to have a short bit of string so you can't actually see the source of the sparks. You just see the sparks themselves as they fly out, if that makes sense. And this is another way of changing colors. This is in-camera white balance. You point the camera at something and set. I don't know how it works. It's crazy computer stuff, but yeah, that changes the color of your wool. The sky was actually orange, and it's come out green. Everything's come out green, so that's quite fun. This is the same thing again, but adjusted. I think this was green. I basically pointed my camera at something green, took a green photo, and then told the camera to use that as the white balance information. And the white pieces at the side that's actually lit up in green, but it's come out white. So I don't understand the science behind it, but if you look kind of closely in the down the bottom on the grass has actually come out sort of black and white almost, which is really bizarre. I don't know how it works, but it's quite cool. This is the same thing again. This is a green-white balance and a green laser, and you can turn a green laser into a white laser, which is good. Next one. Oh, it's stopped. Oh no, there we go. This was this is another way, another different way of using wool. Most shots are usually just side on. I wanted to see what steel wool would look like from above, so I climbed a tree. I'm a trained tree climber, and pointed my camera down and got LED Eddie to spin some wool down below, which came out quite well. I couldn't actually quite get directly above it because obviously there was a tree trunk below me in the way, so I had to, this was the best I could do. And then obviously, while I was up there, do the opposite, have the camera on the ground pointing up into the tree, which was quite fun. Again, not quite, a bit difficult with all the branches in the way, but it's quite fun. Obviously, this was while I was up there. I just thought I'd try and be the world's first human physiogram. It didn't quite work very well. You sort of spin around a bit, so that's quite fun. And yeah, this is the same thing again, different angle. The camera is actually pointed straight up for this shot. And this is actually a very, very steep slope. It looks flat, but I'm actually standing on a very, very steep slope with the camera pointing straight up. So the sparks are actually going over the camera. They look like they're going straight up, but they're actually going over the camera and landing behind the camera. And I tried this, a few variations of this. This was with white balance set to sort of shade or cloudy, so to sort of amplify the light pollution. And this was the opposite. This was white balance set the other way, so the orange light pollution is actually now a nice blue sky. Also notice the steel wool has come out almost white, so color temperature. And this is what's called the blue hour. So it's just after the sun has gone down. Most photographers know this, and before it gets completely dark, you get this really nice, vibrant blue sky. It's very difficult to meter for because the light conditions change very, very quickly, and you may have it nailed perfectly 1 minute, and then a minute later, it's completely different. So that was more luck than skill, this one. So, and yeah, this is a word of warning. If you do this, watch out for your lens, because you throwing hot burning metal at your expensive lenses is probably not a very good idea. So. This is, again, different angle. This is just the camera placed on the ground, pointing straight up, no tripod, and me just standing above it, spinning wool. And it creates these really nice sort of straight lines. So usually with still wall shots, you see the sparks sort of arc and do a sort of curved pattern. But if you look at them from directly beneath, they come out almost like rays of the sun. So I wanted to try this again. This is me standing on some bricks to get myself a bit higher. It's just a test shot. No one's ever seen this, so and that came out like that. So very difficult to control the exposure because wool is sometimes it's really bright, sometimes it's really dark. But yeah, that came out quite happy with that one. This is the same thing, same technique again. Camera on the ground, pointing straight up, and I blocked out the center of the lens and spun the wool above it, and then I put a sticker in the middle of the lens, and then peeled it off again and moved the camera to a tripod pointing at the orb tool in the center. It's a very simple masking technique. This was the opposite. This was again in some trees. I sort of I'll try and explain this. Strung a line between two trees, and then had the camera in the middle between these two trees, pointing straight down, and then lay on the ground and spun wool around myself and lit myself with flashes. It's not perfect. Obviously, it's just dangling from a string, so it sort of wobbles around a little bit. But it's good enough if you're just using flashes, and if you're quite quick. And this is the opposite. This is again camera on the ground, pointing up, but me hanging from a tree. I've got a harness on underneath my trousers that you can't see. And that was very, very difficult, very painful, and didn't come out that great. So it took me three goes to do that. The first night, I discovered that I needed extra support because I was trying to lie flat, and it was really, really painful on my back. So I had to come back the next night with an extra strap for my harness so I could lie flat. And then my device that I was using to spin wool, this is an electronic device, a motor with a clip on it, so I can just hold it there and switch it on, and it will automatically spin around. But I used hot glue, and obviously it got hot and melted, so I had to come back a third night and finally got this. So this is my favorite sort of underneath the wool shot. This was for Halloween. This was again the motorized wool spinner. It was actually attached to the back of the pumpkin. I hollowed out a pumpkin and attached the wool spinner to it. And I'm not entirely sure how I did this. I tried doing it again a year later and it failed miserably. So I'd love to, if anyone can tell me how I did this, can you let me know? Because I'd love to know. So yeah, steel wool, favorite tool of all time. But second favorite tool, closely followed by, is LED strips. These are just simple LED strips you can get off Amazon or eBay. And again, I'm lazy, so it's really easy. You just walk through the scene, and you've suddenly just got color everywhere, color and light everywhere. And then these are programmable LEDs, or you might know it as a pixel stick. This was a homemade, very basic one. Didn't quite get the colors right first. As you can see, some of the colors aren't quite right, but finally got it done. Got it sorted in the end, and did things like this. This was one of my first tries with the programmable LED light wand. I attached some sparklers to the ends just to make it a bit more interesting, give it a bit more sparkle, and to create this sort of almost a butterfly wing effect, which I find very effective. This was a few years ago now, and this was fairly new technology, and most photos using this technique were like computer game characters or just letters, just sort of spelt out. But I thought it'd be interesting to try and do more of it. Think of it more as like a brush to paint with, rather than just something that will project an image somewhere. Actually use it more in the scene. And this was the programmable wand and my regular old wand bolted together. So it's 4 meters long, and creating like an 8-meter long huge circle. This guy in the middle is another good friend of mine called Stuart Fish on Flickr, you may have heard of. The only problem with this, it's very long. It gets heavy and it's very, very wobbly. That's why it's got the edges isn't quite perfectly circular. It's a bit wavy, but that was quite fun. And this is one of my favorite sort of butterfly wing shots. This was in a pond. I had to do this twice, 2 sweeps. I had to mark in the ground where my feet were going to go, and then move the wand over half my body, and then walked out of shot, and then went back to the same spot and did the other side of my body. And the ripples in the pond kind of make these interesting. As I was wading through the pond, I had to wear boots to stop my feet getting wet, obviously. And it creates this really nice sort of rippling effect, which is very nice. This is, again, same thing. This is LED Eddie again, without the gas mask. You don't often see that, so it's quite a rare shot. This time I had someone else working focus on my lens. So as I walked towards the camera with the light one, they gradually moved the focus, and it creates this sort of blurry, shallow depth of field kind of effect, which is quite nice. This is in a tunnel, obviously, and this is close. If you have it close to a wall, the wall kind of absorbs some of the light from it, and it creates this quite nice sort of hazy effect, which is quite cool. And the bit in the center, that was I measured out a piece of string for the steel wool that was exactly half the length of the digital light wand. So the light wand was 2 meters long, the string was 1 meter long. So I just stood there, did the wool spin, and then put it down, and then picked up the digital light wand and sort of spun it like a staff to fill in the circle in the center there. And this was like a tunnel effect. Literally just walk along holding it up to do the top, then walk along holding it near to the ground, and then do the sides. And then again, just sort of move it across myself to fill in the square in the center. This got me thinking, rather than holding it up like that, or down like that, and down like that, why not just do it one way and move the camera? And this was before I had any kind of means of rotating cameras. I just had a normal tripod, which could just do that angle and that angle, anywhere between there, but it couldn't quite get all the way around. To get around that in this shot, I actually had to spin the top of the tripod around, and you can actually see this here is the little sort of arm on the back of the tripod, so which I wasn't able to get out of the shot. So this was this is as much rotation as I could get with a standard tripod. So I can't remember. This was 3, so started level 90 degrees, and then that angle 45 degrees, and then all the way up. But then it couldn't quite get all the way around, hence why there's that blank bit in the middle. But it came out quite nice. But this is a complete rotation. This is where I built a very basic tool. It was like a bicycle wheel with a camera attached to it, so I could rotate it all the way around. And this is another thing I found I could do with the rotating camera, rather than have the thank you, rather than move the lights, keep the lights still, and just move the camera. It also creates this really nice sort of depth effect, because obviously if you have the light wand on the ground, the LEDs nearer to the camera are going to be spaced out, and then as you move away, they get closer together, which creates this sort of tunnel effect, which is quite fun. Here's the same thing again with an old sort of, jump flash technique. You have to jump and pop a flash. Took about 20 goes, but I think I got it in the end. And this is one using my eye. This was quite tricky. I had to measure how close my lens could get, close focusing distance for my lens, which was about that long, about 10 centimeters. And then cut a stick to that length, and then use that to sort of gauge how far away I was from the lens. And then obviously took the stick away and popped a flash, and then did the rotation with the light wand. Also quite interesting to note, there's the little green circle in the center there. That was actually something reflecting, that was I think it was some DVDs on a shelf. I did this at home, and but it's lined up quite nicely with the iris, so that worked out quite nicely. This is, okay, we're getting complicated now. This is a fisheye lens. I have a fisheye zoom lens, which can zoom from 8 millimeters to 15 millimeters. And at 8 millimeters, you just get a circular image in the center and black all around it. And then if you zoom in to 15 millimeters, it fills the whole frame all the way to the edges. So basically, I did the same shot as I did before, with this was zoomed in at 15 millimeters, and then did the orb and the rotation, and then I zoomed out to 8 millimeters and pointed the camera straight up at the sky to create the sky with the trees in the center there. Another interesting thing to note is if you have the digital light wand, if you look, the camera's looking that way, and you have the digital light wand on the ground at a slight angle, you get that sort of curved line rather than a straight line. Go back one, yeah, if you see these, this was with the light wand sort of, I don't know what is it oblique or not parallel, something like that, pointing straight out, and that's a slight angle. And what else we got? This is the same thing again with the fisheye lens. I did the orb and the rotation shot, and then zoomed out and put the camera on the ground and did the whole wall spin on the ground, pointing straight up. Yeah, and this is kind of the other way around. This is steel wool around the edges, masked out the center of the lens, and do the wall spin. Camera on the ground, pointing up, wall spin. Take the, I think I used a bottle cap. I just placed a bottle cap on the lens, and that left a black space in the center, and then panned up and did the orb and rotation shot with the digital light wand. And this is digital light wand reflected in water. Basically, the light wand was pointing down over some water, and it was just, the camera was just picking up the reflections in the water, so it creates that nice ripple effect. And then obviously just move it to a second tripod and do the 4-way rotation with the tree and me in the center. And this is, again, more messing around. This was the outside of this is, the pattern around the outside is just a regular cheap strip of LEDs. Set to flash red, green, blue, red, green, blue. And first I had it at sort of that angle, and then did one rotation, and then I moved it to, basically flipped it round, and then did another rotation, and that created this crisscross effect. I don't know if this is making any sense. Also, it was out of focus, deliberately out of focus, to create that nice blur effect. And just as to show you what this blur effect does, this is the same shot, but without the blur. And for same white balance, same settings and everything, but for some reason it comes out completely different, and I've no idea why. So again, if anyone can explain that, please let me know. This is another rotation shot. This is me in a tunnel. This is again, blocking out the center of the lens, and then pointing a light straight at the camera, and lighting up the water, and then rotating it around and doing it again with a different color, and then doing a wool spin, rotating it again, doing a wool spin, and then finally taking the mask off the center of the lens and doing a final wool spin. This is my camera collection, some of my camera collection. This is another thing I like to do, which is use a lot of film or analog. This was actually, I really like the idea of using film, but I can never motivate myself. So I thought, well, best thing to do is another 365, but this time all on film. So looking back, it was a crazy idea, really not much fun at times. but I'm very glad I did it. I'd recommend everyone do a 365, but not necessarily on film. That's probably not such a good idea. But, so these are a few of my film shots somewhere. Somewhere? No? Oh, there we go. Oh, no, whoa. Back up. Easy, tiger. Anyway, here's a camera. I might as well talk about that. Oh, there we go. Okay. Whoa. Behave. Bear with us. We are experiencing technical difficulties. There we go. Right. This is a little joke. It's not light painting, but it's a bit of a joke. This is a stitched panorama. Literally a stitch. It's actually literally stitched together with cotton. So I just thought that was quite fun. But yeah. This also demonstrates one of the things I like about film, which is all that weird stuff and letters and numbers and stuff you get at the edges, which you just don't get with digital. So I love that sort of stuff. This is a medium format camera. They're very cheap, very easy to come by. But what I like doing is wedging regular 35mm film into it, and that way it exposes the entire width of the film, including all those bits with the numbers and codes and stuff at the edges. This was LED Eddie lighting this. I can't really take credit for that. That's his camera in the foreground there, taking a shot for himself, and me just at the back with my weird old film camera. And this is an even older camera. This camera is about 100 years old, and I found it at a flea market for about £1. So really good value. And it's a little bit blurry. I'm not sure if that's my fault or the camera, but it's still pretty good for a 100-year-old camera, I thought. So, and this is another shot with it. This is a traffic trial shot, but I used 2 rolls of film, rather than just one. Had them overlapping in the middle. It's actually one roll of film pulled out and cut in half, and then taped together to fit in the medium format camera. It's quite tricky to scan. As you can see, it's got that really bright blue bit down the middle, which is where the 2 films overlap. When you scan a negative, it shines a backlight through it. And obviously, if you have 2 pieces of film on top of each other, that center strip is going to be darker than the rest of it. And when you invert that, it comes out light rather than dark. This was one of my favorite things. This was 2 films again, but one color, one black and white. I scanned these 2 separately to avoid that bright blue stripe down the middle. And then combine the 2 in GIMP afterwards, photo editing software. So, okay, it's not quite straight out of the camera, but it's close enough. So, this is a technique called cross-processing. This was shot on slide film, which, unlike normal film, is a positive rather than a negative. So, if you remember all those old-school slides and slide projectors, that's the type of film this was. And you need slightly different chemicals to process it, develop it. But you can also develop slide film in regular chemicals that you would use to develop negatives. And it works, but the colors come out all messed up, obviously. This isn't a great example, but it's as far as I know, the only example I've ever seen of someone cross-processed light painting. So needs to be more of that. The world needs more of that. This is red scale. I don't know don't ask me why it's called red scale. This is basically literally just loading the film backwards into a camera. Film has like a right side and a wrong side. It has an emulsion painted on one side, and that's the side that gets exposed usually. But you can load it into a camera backwards, and it will shine through the back of the film and create this red cast. There's a very complicated scientific explanation for this, but I don't quite understand it, and I won't go into it here. Basically, it makes it makes nice red pictures. Also quite interesting here, this little squiggle here. That's where I actually creased the film when I was loading it into the developing tank. And it's kind of, I don't know, depending on your point of view, ruined it or made it better. I'm not sure. So, some people like it. And this is, lastly, this is my 3D camera. It has 4 lenses and takes four pictures from slightly different angles. And I think the way it worked back in the day, you would send your film off, you'd shoot your pictures, send your film off to a special company, and then they would send it back as lenticular prints, basically prints that you can look 3D. Some guy was talking about it earlier, I can't remember his name. Jadakin, that's the guy, yes, got their name. Yeah, and these are supposed to be GIFs. Oh yeah, GIFs, hang on, bear with me. So it takes 4 pictures at a time, and they used to be combined. You'd send them off to a lab and they'd come back 3D. Nowadays, no one does this anymore, so you have to come up with interesting ways to actually view them in 3D. You can do this like a magic eye picture. If you remember those weird magic eye things from a few years ago that were quite popular, it just looks like a mess, and if you just stare at it in the right sort of way, you'll see a 3D image pop out. I don't know if anyone can see that, but yeah, most people can't see that. It's a bit difficult. So, but I find GIFs a lot more interesting. This is basically you scan the film and then edit the individual frames into a GIF and then just play it backwards and forwards, and it gives a sort of illusion of 3D. I've got some others here. I don't know how. No, try this one. So this is do. Oh, there we go. This is again LED Eddy light painting, and me just sort of sneakily getting a 3D shot out of it. And got another example here. Again, LED Eddy again, but it's quite fun. And yeah, there he is again. I haven't done this very often because it's actually really quite painstakingly a lot of work to get this right, because you have to manually align all the frames to get them to match up. If you don't get it quite right, it's very jumpy. The image sort of jumps around, so you have to spend a long time lining them up. The other interesting thing is you can line up different parts of the image. Here I sort of lined up the back of the image, so his hand moves like that. But you could also just keep his hand still, and then have the rest of him shifting backwards and forwards like that. And that gives a different effect. But like I said, it's very, very complicated and takes ages, and it looks cool, but it's very difficult. Not worth the effort. And yeah, we're back to here. This is basically what I've been doing recently. Hang on, skip through all these. I've gone back to using digital again. I still use film occasionally. And I'm just trying to make things simpler, just going back a few steps, and just doing very simple, very controlled, just an RGB torch and some steel wool mainly. It's another thing I've been doing is hands, silhouettes. And I found that if you unscrew the lens off the end of a torch, you can get really nice crisp shadows. And here's another one with my RGB torch. Again, with the thing on the end of the, I don't know what it's called, lens on the end of the torch removed, and it leaves these nice crisp shadows. And also like just playing around with using steel wool as a light source. As you see, it gives off a sort of orange color, which mixes with the other colors and gives you a wide range of colors. So I think that's it. Yeah. Oh no. Yeah, we're back to the beginning. Yeah, that's all I've got. So thank you very much.